Hi, Village of Hazel Crest. I am back again with another edition of Let's Talk. This one is a little bit different because we want to focus on a different area of medicine. And I have the honor and the privilege to actually be in the offices of Dr. Christopher Kardasis. He is an ophthalmologist, excuse me, that's a mouthful, but he is an ophthalmologist associated with Advocate South Suburban Hospital. And Dr. Kardasis, tell us a little bit about yourself, your schooling, how you came to become affiliated with Advocate, and why you're here in Hazel Crest.
Well, it's a long story, but in short, I am an ophthalmologist, board certified. I've been practicing and on staff here at South Suburban for 20 years. It'll be my 20th year this year. And I've been in the community ever since then. Why I'm here is because the opportunities came here. I had my associate who hired me some 20 years ago and passing the baton or torch of her care of patients to me, and, you know, coming out of training, and it was an awesome responsibility to care for an established practice. And I did bring a lot to the practice that through my training that she wasn't offering, and so it was a wonderful supplement. But here I am 20 years later, and I'm currently the vice chair of surgery, and I also sit on various committees with the hospital. And I am a graduate at Northwestern.
Feinberg School of Medicine,
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm a local Chicago boy. I grew up in the city. I went to all Chicago institutions, bar one, which was the Kresge Eye Institute in Detroit, Michigan, where I had great surgical experience and fabulous, fabulous teaching facilities. Here I am back in my hometown, taking care of people, and I couldn't have it any other way.
Oh, that's beautiful. Very, very impressive, Dr. Kardasis. That's quite impressive. Now, if we kind of go into, you know, the nitty-gritty of things, some people don't understand or know what an ophthalmologist does. Can you tell us the difference between an ophthalmologist and an optometrist?
Right. Well, if it takes you more syllables than not to pronounce it, you know that I'm the medical doctor. I've got the MD. So in essence, it's taken me more years to get the name, so that's why the word sounds longer. But it's true. I'm a medical and surgical specialist of all things related to the eye. And juxtapose that with optometrists, which outnumber ophthalmologists by 5 to 1. Most Americans, most of the American public runs into an optometrist before one sees an ophthalmologist, mainly because most people just want contacts or glasses, and most people will find these eye specialists in the malls, shopping centers, and independent optical companies, and I won't name those, but I think we all are familiar with them. But they essentially are the front line, if you will, of eye care. They provide the ABCs of refraction, glasses, and contacts. But people who come to me will certainly could benefit from those. I offer those services. I mean, I do refract, I do offer glasses and contacts, but medically and surgically trained ophthalmologists like myself are primarily interested in addressing the medical and surgical care of our patients as it relates to eye problems. And if you ask around in your family, you'll find that there are a lot of eye issues that you may not have realized that exist. And in this country, in this community, a lot of folks have cataracts at a certain age. They develop glaucoma. They have family members who have glaucoma, and they're wondering whether they have glaucoma. Well, I'm the specialist who would answer those kinds of questions and concerns.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so now when you say glaucoma, normally we think of the older generation, which we're not there yet. Or you can be, I'm not, if you want to be. We'll get there, absolutely. So I guess my question would be, should everyone see an ophthalmologist, and when should one see an ophthalmologist?
I think it's a great question. I have a personal bias. If someone wants complete eye care, and in all due respect to my optometry colleagues, and it's a profession that I respect, but if you're concerned about medical and surgical issues, go to the source. Go to the individual who's surgically and medically trained, who's attended medical school, who's gone through credentialing, and who's gone through residency and fellowship training, and who's in a position to answer those questions. You would want to speak to an ophthalmologist because you have medical issues. If you're looking for glasses or contacts, I'm ambivalent. You can go to either myself or the optometrist. In fact, many of my patients see me and they also have an optometrist for their eye care.
Gotcha.
Mainly because a lot of people also have vision plans. And with vision plans, you have optometrists that are primarily allowed to operate in those kinds of plans. The medical surgical specialists, ophthalmologists like myself, essentially we take medical insurance. It is medical issues that we address, and
Gotcha.
therefore, remember folks, use your medical insurance to see an ophthalmologist, because we get a lot of questions like, well, do you take VSP?
Right.
We get that a lot, and what we always have to educate, we know right there that the patient or the individual is not aware of the difference.
Yes.
If they were aware of the difference, they wouldn't ask such a question. They would be prepared to offer us their medical card. So we do want to educate the public that we are the medical surgical specialist. You take out your card. If you're over 65, it's Medicare or some other HMO or state exchange plans that you have. We work with that. And my office is dedicated to providing, at least participating in as many of these plans. And with today's health insurance industry and being in such a transitional period, we try to stay abreast of what's available to the public, so we are participating providers. So if one switches from one plan to the other, chances are I'll still be with them.
Wonderful. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay, so it's good to know that an ophthalmologist takes regular medical insurance because you practice medicine,
Right.
and that is the primary difference. Now, from a peer professional perspective, do you, or is it the expectation that an optometrist, if I've seen an optometrist most of my life or all of my life, is it the expectation that if they see something that they are not familiar with, that they would refer me to an ophthalmologist? Is that?
It would,
kind of-
yes, they would serve as the, if you will, a screener.
Okay.
But sometimes, and I've seen variations in how they practice, some of them will oftentimes not dilate an eye, and some of them don't feel quite comfortable saying more than just a very general way of referring a patient. And so people can come away maybe not with a complete picture of what, or a sense of how severe or important or how much of a precedent it is to move on this. And if you have any suspicion at all, if you're really interested about addressing medical issues, I think the consistency of quality could vary among the optometric group.
Okay.
So, and I like to address this in a very respectable way. I mean, if there's any shred of doubt, seek out an ophthalmologist.
Gotcha.
Because that's where the training and the time has been expended
Gotcha.
in properly evaluating and screening individuals. That's not to say that there are good optometrists out there, and there are. It's just that depending on their training and background, the quality of care may not be consistent across the board.
Exactly.
But among ophthalmologists, we're held to a very strict standard through credentialing and examinations and certifications that the quality is very consistent and it is focused where it should be in these areas of concern for the public.
Okay. Okay. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier when I asked the question about, when should we see an ophthalmologist? And of course, you answered, whenever there are issues with respect to, the medical side of our eyes. But if I don't, or if I have a young one who doesn't necessarily have problems or issues, I mean, would it still behoove me to have that, my child checked by an ophthalmologist just to make sure everything's okay, and then maybe periodically through life?
Yeah, Gwen, it's a good question. And I think, what I've seen in my lifetime is even our government has gotten more involved to the point that now we actually screen preschool children, where once when we were their age, we were not benefiting of that. And I'm speaking directly about lazy eyes, what most people describe, otherwise known as amblyopia, or strabismus, or crossed-eyed. And they're doing screening measures now for those particular children who are most susceptible in that age range. So yes, there is comfort to know that the schools are taking initiative, the state is taking initiative, but if there is a family history, and you know of members of the family, either yourself as a parent or your spouse, or within the family of cross-eyed or amblyopia, or any other inherited diseases, even childhood glaucoma exists. It's best to seek out an ophthalmologist because you have that concern and because you have that history in the family.
Gotcha. Now, if there is no history where your eyes are concerned, but maybe, people later in life develop, maladies like diabetes or, so in those cases, when we know things are changing, should people really see an ophthalmologist? Should we?
You're absolutely right. The operative word there that you said is change. Whenever there's change, and there's one thing my father always said in life, the one constant in life is change. And when change does come, we're never in a static position, and things can happen, and things do change. So take the initiative. And what I always try to foster in my relationship with my patients is, this is not the medicine of your parents' and grandparents' generation. And, you know, those old timers would take the initiative to listen to their doctor, take it as an order, and execute. In this medical environment today, it's more of an exchange. It's the public has accrued more medical knowledge than our grandparents and our parents' generation. And they come fully armed with questions because of that knowledge. So to me, I'm having a conversation. I'm not issuing directives. It's a different relationship. So I believe that the public is getting more involved in their care, and I think better care comes from that. We see people living longer. The quality of medicine, the knowledge of the public, and the interaction in a coordinated fashion, in a mutual fashion, I think is going to play dividends. And so I encourage people to get involved with your care.
That's beautiful. That's good to know, because I know some doctors, it's a different spin, you know, with respect to getting on the internet, finding out if I have these symptoms, maybe it's this, because some doctors get offended when you come in and say, well, you know, I looked this up and this sounds like, what do you think?
Right.
But you kind of hit the nail on the head. And I love your perspective, because you said coordinated care, where, you know, you talk about this, you engage in conversation, and I love it. I think that's wonderful.
We're not all cut from the same bark. And you will notice that the older generation physicians have more of that paternalistic approach to things. They sort of utter their recommendations, and that's the end of the conversation. But the newer generation, the younger generation physicians, myself and others who have come up, have seen a new dynamic going on.
Gotcha.
And it's a different way of practicing. I think a more effective way.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Now we know, Dr. Kardasis, that you are actually, of course, affiliated with Advocate, and I understand that you have a practice even at Christ. Is that what you mentioned?
I am on staff at Christ, and I'm a consultant at Trinity in the city, and I also am at Little Company of Mary. So my emphasis is in the immediate Southland area here. I was an adjunct professor at Rush for 13 years, but I found that for the benefit of my patients, I found that the greatest care is when you're there in the community among the people, where you're highly accessible.
Absolutely. Now, tell us, if you recall, tell us a little bit about your hours of operation here, you know, who they can call to make an appointment, maybe, you know, get that number out there so that people can know they can come and see Dr. Kardasis.
Well, the number here is 708-799-3720.
Okay.
You'll find me 6 days out of the week in either this office primarily or the one up in Evergreen Park, which is down the street from Little Company of Mary on 95th Street.
Okay.
And with the exception of Sunday, I'm at church.
That's understandable. Most of us are.
You can page me.
We can page you. Okay, I don't think we want to interfere with worship.
It might be an hour delay until the service is over, because I don't want to embarrass the pastor.
Dr. Kardasis, thank you so much for joining us today. It has indeed been a pleasure. Thank you for opening up your doors, for kind of letting us inch in a little bit to your practice, because he's very busy today. We're actually in the middle of an office setting. He is seeing patients today, so we're going to cut this in a little bit. But I just want to say thank you again, and I want to encourage you to look up Dr. Kardasis, Dr. Christopher Kardasis, that's Kardasis, on the internet, and you will see that he is affiliated with Advocate. He has an office here in the professional building, which is 178th and Kedzie Avenue. He recited the phone number, which is
708-799-3720. And if there's anything to take away from this conversation, is empower yourselves with knowledge. Ask questions. Be inquisitive. Don't be passive. Engage yourself. Find out. If there's any doubt, reach out.
Awesome words of wisdom. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk.